And a welcome here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. Appreciate you being here with us. And of course, we are with you Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern time on youtube.com and facebook.com, both /Wake Up Call DT, and on wakeupcalldt.podbean.com. This is a special broadcast, a bonus broadcast, if you will, of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, as I am here in the stomping grounds of Penn State around Happy Valley area for the college football playoff first round. This is history for the college football playoff. There's never been a first round of the college football playoff. When it came into existence about a decade ago, we saw them have semifinals, two semifinals, and of course the final game, 4 teams. And this is the first year of the expansion, expanding to 12, having a first round, quarterfinal, semifinal, and a championship game. And so I'm very happy to be covering the college football playoff for yet another year, and for the first time ever, covering the historic 12-team playoff and the historic first time that we've had a first round in the college football playoff. And of course, this first round features the team with the lower number seed having a home game. And so this game between SMU and Penn State is off at University Park at Beaver Stadium around the State College area for Penn State and the Nittany Lions, who will be hosting the SMU Mustangs. Penn State, the 6th seed and an at-large bid to the college football playoff, and SMU, an 11 seed and an at-large bid to the college football playoff as well. So happy to have you here today from the stomping grounds of Penn State. Let's get into the conversation here, taking a look at a background as we preview this matchup between SMU and Penn State in this first ever first round of the college football playoff. And of course, I'll be on site on location at Beaver Stadium tomorrow, so I'm looking forward to seeing you all out there. If you see me, come over, say hello, and definitely appreciate you all for your support up and down the East Coast, the Midwest, the West Coast, and all around the globe here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Of course, on our social media, you can find us 24/7 on Facebook at Wake Up Call DT, as well as on X, the former Twitter, at CallDT, and on Instagram at wakeupcall_DT. So with that being said, here's some background on this game coming up between SMU and Penn State. Now, starting on the offensive side of the ball, Penn State, 15th in the nation going into this game in total yards per game with 448.6 on offense, but they did play one more game than some of the teams that are within these top 15, and of course over 130 FBS schools. So keep in mind, Penn State is 15th in the nation. They did play an extra game, and so did SMU, both playing 13 games, playing in their conference championship game. Penn State 15th in the nation once again in total yards per game. Heading into this college football playoff first round matchup, they have 448.6 yards per game, total yards per game, 448.6. By the way, Syracuse, my hometown, is in the top 10 in the nation with 456.1 points per game in one less game than Penn State in 12 games played. SMU is 21st in the nation in total yards per game with 443.1. So Penn State 15th in the nation in total yards average per game. SMU is 21st, so they're 6 spots below Penn State, but only 5.5 yards below them with 443.1. SMU leads Penn State in the country in passing yards per game with 267. SMU is 26th in the nation in that category. Penn State is 41st in the country in passing yards per game heading into this matchup in the college football playoff with 246.5. Syracuse leads the entire country, my hometown, with 363.1 passing yards per game behind the quarterback that has the most passing yards this season of any quarterback of over 130 FBS schools, that being Kyle McCord. Penn State is 19th, and by the way, Penn State went up against Ohio State last year. Kyle McCord was at Ohio State. Penn State is 19th in the country in rushing yards per game with 202.2. SMU is 50th in the country in rushing yards per game with 176.1. And SMU leads Penn State in points per game. SMU is 6th in the nation of over 130 Division I A FBS schools 6th in the nation in points per game with 38.5 are the Mustangs. Penn State is 25th in the country in points per game with 33.6, so they're averaging almost 5 points less a game than SMU is going into this matchup in the first round of the college football playoff here in the historic 12-team format, and the first time we've ever had a first round in the college football playoff. Heading to the defensive side of the ball as we preview SMU at Penn State in the first round of the college football playoff, Penn State is 6th in the nation in total yards allowed per game, allowing 282.1 total yards, not passing yards, not rushing yards. They allow 282.1 total yards per game, which puts them 6th in the nation for the Nittany Lions. Just to put that into perspective, that is an average of 70.5 yards allowed per quarter, which isn't much. SMU is 28th in the nation in total yards allowed per game with 326.1. So they are allowing 44 yards more a game than Penn State is. Penn State also leads SMU in passing yards allowed per game. Penn State is 16th in the country, allowing 178.5 passing yards per game. SMU is 92nd in the nation in passing yards allowed per game, allowing 232.7. So in that case, they are allowing around 54.2 passing yards more per game than Penn State. SMU does lead Penn State in rushing yards allowed per game. SMU is 4th in the nation in rushing yards allowed per game with 93.4. A few teams in the country allowing less than 100 rushing yards per game, SMU being one of them and being 4th in the nation. Penn State is in the top 10 as well. They are 9th in the nation, allowing a little bit over 100 yards rushing per game with 103.6. Penn State's defense is 8th in the nation in points allowed per game with 16.4. SMU is 20 spots lower at 28th in the nation coming into this game in points allowed per game with 20.8. So the difference between 8th and 28th in the country is 4.4 more points allowed per game. So SMU allowing around 21 points a game, Penn State allowing 16 points a game. SMU, looking at their schedule going into this game, they lost to BYU, who was unranked at the time of play, but BYU would go on to stay undefeated for a long time this season, and they would get ranked. SMU lost this game in a game where neither team could find the end zone, 18-15. SMU's only other loss came to Clemson, 34-31, as time expired in the ACC championship game on that last-second field goal. They did come all the way back in that game. SMU has proven that they can be a second-half team. So SMU has 2 losses this season. Those 2 losses are by a combined less than a touchdown and an extra point. They've lost only 2 games this season by a combined 6 points. So they've lost by less than a touchdown and an extra point over 2 games. That's something huge here for SMU coming into this game. They have a fantastic record. They've done an incredible job of where they are right now. And looking at their schedule, losing by 6 points over their only 2 losses, huge. SMU has 2 wins against teams ranked at the time of play this season, and that beating Louisville and Pitt. So SMU with 2 wins this season against ranked teams at the time of play, and that was Louisville and Pitt. SMU went a perfect 8-0 in ACC play in the regular season in their first ever campaign in the ACC, joining the ACC this season after being in the American Athletic. On Penn State's side of things, Penn State comes into the game with only 2 losses as well. Their loss to Ohio State was by a touchdown, 20-13, a touchdown and an extra point, and to Oregon in the Big Ten Championship, 45-37. So SMU's 2 losses this season are a combined 6 points. Penn State's losses this season are a combined 15 points, losing by a touchdown and extra point to Ohio State, and losing in the Big Ten Championship to Oregon, who's in their first season in the Big Ten, by a touchdown and a 2-point conversion, 45-37. Penn State only has 1 win versus a ranked team at the time of play, that being a victory over Illinois. So SMU has more ranked wins than Penn State this season, and they have lost by less points this season. and Penn State went 8-1 in the regular season in Big Ten play. Keep in mind the Big Ten has 9 conference games. The ACC has 8. So the ACC plays 4 non-conference, 8 conference, and the Big Ten plays 9 conference with only 3 non-conference games. So that's a look at the backdrop of this matchup between these two teams, SMU and Penn State. And then going to SMU's side of it here, going to their quarterback switch. I had the opportunity to speak with Rhett Lashley a bunch of times this season, and one of the conversations that we had was about the starting quarterback. Now, Preston Stone was the starting quarterback for this team last season, and Kevin Jennings and Preston Stone were fighting for the job, and he said to make a decision to sit down the incumbent starter in Preston Stone for Kevin Jennings, a sophomore, is something that may not have been a popular thing when he decided to do it, but ultimately it has proved to be a great decision for SMU, as Kevin Jennings coming in here has gone outside of the loss to Clemson. We've seen Kevin Jennings here winning a long streak of games, 8 in a row, or pardon me, I believe it's 9 in a row now. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in a row against TCU. 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, 73.7% completion percentage against Florida State. 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, 69.6% completion percentage. At Louisville, who was ranked at the time, he had no touchdowns through the air, no interceptions again. He did have a touchdown rushing, 77.8% completion percentage. Against Stanford in a win, 63% completion percentage, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. So his first interception there from the TCU game on, his first interception came 4 games into that, starting with TCU. And then against Duke in overtime, they won 28-27. He had a 54.2% completion percentage, his worst completion percentage of the season. That was on the road at Duke. 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions, 1 rushing touchdown in that game. Then against Pitt, but they still won that game against Duke, even though he had not his worst performance of the season. Against Pitt, 68% completion percentage against a ranked Pitt who was 18th in the country at the time. 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. By the way, Pitt was undefeated at the time. SMU defeated Pitt at home in Texas, and after defeating Pitt, Pitt went on a losing streak there, but SMU is the first team to defeat Pitt this season. And 68% completion percentage in that game for Kevin Jennings. 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Against BC, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, 68.6% completion percentage. And then against Virginia, 323 yards passing there, which was his highest at the time, and 75.8% completion percentage, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, and 1 rushing touchdown. And against Cal, 66.7% completion percentage, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. And in the ACC championship against Clemson, 62% completion percentage, threw for over 300 yards with 304, had 50 attempts, 31 completions, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, and a rushing touchdown in that loss. So Kevin Jennings going 9-0 until the Clemson game where they lost by a last-second field goal. So that's been huge, that move to Kevin Jennings from Preston Stone, the incumbent starter, a decision made by Rhett Lashley that, like he said, may not have been the decision that people wanted at the time, but it ended up being the right decision for SMU and helped get them into the college football playoff. On the other side of it for Penn State, looking at their quarterback, the Penn State Nittany Lions here are led by Drew Allar, and Drew Allar, looking at him, number 15, coming from Medina, Ohio. Drew, for the season, taking a look at what he's done, he had started off the season with a 7-game winning streak. That's 7-0 start, and then the loss to Ohio State 20-13. Then they won 4 in a row before losing to Oregon in the Big Ten championship. His completion percentages from the first game to now have gone 64.7, 65, 81, 71.4, 70.8, 69.8, 77.8, 60, 71.4, 89.5 at Purdue, who was the worst team in the Big Ten, didn't have a Big Ten win this season. He went 17 of 19, 247 yards, 89.5% completion percentage, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Then in his last 3 games at Minnesota, 75% completion percentage, Maryland at home, 65.4, and Oregon in the Big Ten championship was his worst game as far as completion percentage and interceptions. He was 51.3% in completion percentage, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions in the game. He has 6 rushing touchdowns this season. They came against Bowling Green in non-conference play, Kent State in non-conference play, both at home, UCLA at home, and Minnesota on the road, Maryland at home, and Oregon in the Big Ten Championship. So those are his 6 rushing touchdowns this season. So you got 2 quarterbacks that are throwing better than 65% in their completion percentage on the season. Kevin Jennings around 66%, and looking at Drew Allar with 69.1% completion percentage this season as we step into this game. So very excited for what's coming up in this matchup at Beaver Stadium, which you can see behind me as I am here in the Happy Valley area and here to cover this college football playoff and bring you through the college football playoff here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. You know, we cover it year in and year out. We've had the opportunity to speak with the teams inside of the college football playoff. The first time I ever spoke with Nick Saban of Alabama was inside of the college football playoff when Cincinnati made it, and he said that there was no doubt in his mind that the team on the other side deserved to be there. And when he was talking about the Cincinnati Bearcats, who were in the American Athletic at the time, and it was the first school to make it from a conference that wasn't the Big 12, Pac-12, Big 10, ACC, or SEC. So first team to make it out of the American, MAC, Conference USA, Sun Belt, and Mountain West. So congratulations once again for Cincinnati and the American Athletic for doing that inside of the college football playoff. Once again, giving you some background on how the offense and defense looks for SMU as well as Penn State, how they've looked throughout this season, who they've gone up against this season, and this matchup that they have against one another. It's at Beaver Stadium here in Happy Valley for Penn State hosting as the number 6 seed, SMU the 11 seed in the first round, the first ever first round of the college football playoff in the historic first season of the expanded 12-team playoff. The college football playoff in this game will determine who moves on between SMU and Penn State. The winner of SMU and Penn State will be playing Boise State. Boise State, the number 3 seed after winning the Mountain West and getting awarded a first-round bye on to the quarterfinals. So with that being said, I hope you all have a wonderful night. I'll be up early, and I'll see you all at Beaver Stadium for this matchup between SMU and Penn State. It's Mustangs and Nittany Lions, and Wake Up Call will be there to bring you through it. Of course, we use our hashtag WakeUpCallOTR for Wake Up Call